Yes, we're up and running, sort of. I think something kind of wrong here.
I've been watching him for my entire life. I hate the air he breathes, his foolish decrees, his words so contrived. And I hate the way the townspeople gather outside. They hang on every breath, cling to his chest, home to his heart full of pride. The oracle told him to beware the odds, and I'd be lying if
What are
I
you
said
doing,
I was
Gun?
wishing for an eternal death or demise. Or am I just wishing I could be like you, that the people would
You got your
see
headphones?
a poet, and not just the muse. What's not
Hold on a
true, I
sec.
don't wish harm upon you.
The sound on this is kind of crazy.
Jackson! What's up, bro?
All right, my mic's not on.
It is.
What about now? Nope. Can't
You-
hear it.
You don't hear it?
My headphones are not on then.
Do you have it?
I'm on number 2, channel 2. Or maybe I'm on it.
No, you're on 3, brother. That's why you don't hear it, too.
What is this music?
Maybe my name could also be known, that I help return good to the people, restore greatness to Rome.
Brutus, Brutus.
Yeah. Feels like I'm getting ready for the Thunderdome right now.
It's got that vibe. Oh, 1 second here.
They're chanting Brutus too.
It's got that. I like that.
My name is Brutus and my name means heavy. So with that,
So what's good? So here we are. Photoplay vérité. Generically, still photoplay vérité.
Temporarily.
Welcome to the show.
Or maybe not. Who knows?
Episode 00014.
0.14.
Yeah, 0.14. So,
Still haven't hit episode 1
We're-
quite yet, but we're getting there.
and we have 0.0014. We have some subscribers though. It's probably family members, but no current listeners, and that's okay because these are all going to the live YouTube, which I will
Stream.
upload eventually. I'm looking at my Bluetooth, trying to get that connected to my phone. We leave everything transparent here. Whoa,
Raw.
whoa, 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 whoa! That's like a very aggressive dance. Like this is like aggressive. Ugh.
Some experimental bass right here.
How you doing, bud? Yeah. We're running the power off of this bike. Yeah, the battery right there. Well, it was made in Sweden, and it was too expensive. That's why they went bankrupt, because they overbuilt it.
They built it too good.
Yeah, the look is cool. But yeah, I think originally it was up near 10,000, but I didn't pay that much for it. I will say. Okay, so
Mike does have an epic bike. I mean, this thing is super sick.
it gets a lot of attention, I will say. And it's what attracted me at first. You know, like the first one that I saw was at Santa Monica College, a kid that I'm now kind of friendly with, and he put me on what is that called? This sort of chat thing. It's
GPT?
Not ChatGPT. It's called Discord. Are you on any Discords?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a cake for the bike Discord, and his name is Carlos, and he
Oh, that's
used to.
cool.
The only guys we ran into, the one guy at the farmers market who had one that
Yeah.
I've seen. There's apparently another guy that is at Gold's Gym. I don't know. Someone told me that.
I haven't seen that one.
The guy that lives around
haven't-
another guy. There's a lot of guys around in Venice, but the guy that is older from Philadelphia, works in production, film production, hangs out at the office, aka Intelligentsia. He is. He told me there's a guy at Gold's Gym that has one. He really wants one. He's like, look, he's an older guy. He's like, Joey's
Yeah.
age.
Yeah. He kind of missed the window to get one.
Yeah, he wanted to get one, and then he said. So anyway, we've run into that one guy, and then Carlos has put me on, and that's the first one I saw was that kid Carlos's bike, and we started talking about it a little bit. Then I started looking into it, and then I guess he worked for Cake as well, the Carlos kid.
So he sold you on one, sort of.
No, because he had there
got
was no
your-
skin in the game.
Yeah, but he got your sales process started.
He piqued my interest, is what you're trying to say?
He was the first step in your cake journey,
Mm-hmm.
which ended up with you getting a bike.
He was a small piece of the cake. There's like this guy over here said,
yeah.
I got a face for radio. That's the first time I'd ever heard that one before. And they don't even call this radio anymore,
I've heard that one before.
We used to say internet, of course. I'm joking.
I've never heard I haven't heard who cut the cheese though in so long. Who cut the cheese is like who broke the silence, right?
No, who cut the cheese is who farted.
Yeah, who cut the silence with their fart or cut the conversation or something.
Well, cut the cheese is just because cheese is known for smelling bad.
Was
It's sort
he
of
telling
akin
us-
to gas.
Was he telling
It's
us that he's a
sulfuric.
gassy guy by saying that?
No, he said that he worked at a cheese. You don't pay. Like, are you out to lunch? Like, it is lunch. It's not even lunchtime, and you're out to lunch. He was saying he worked at a cheese shop,
I
and
thought
he was
said
making
worked
it
at a butcher shop.
No, he was making an analogy to a guy that's working in radio for somebody to come up and say, "Hey, I got a face for radio." He knows that's not the first time. It's like working at a cheese shop, which is what he used to do, and it's like somebody making a joke who cut the cheese to him. Like, oh, I never heard that one before. It's the obvious joke to make in a cheese shop.
Obviously,
Yeah.
because you're cutting cheese.
All day long. That's the only thing. If you're manning a cheese counter, that's
What
all
is it-
you're doing.
How is that connected to you got a face for radio though?
He's saying it's analogous to someone making that joke in a cheese shop, someone making that joke in a radio studio, to a radio
Guy,
host.
yeah. Because
Like-
we're sort of doing radio. Radio Photo Play Verite was called Radio Verite at first.
It was, and I did one podcast that I called it Radio Verite, and I think it's a great. I still think Radio Verite is a great name, and I think we should go back to Radio Verite. It's catchy, and it's and it's also
Okay.
it's also paradoxical, because radio. Well, I guess it is sort of truth radio, and that does exist out there. There is truth radio. When somebody's posted up behind me, like this guy in the LA cap right here, like behind me, like directly over your shoulder, I think that he's curious about the show, or I don't know, maybe he's waiting for his wife to do the shopping because he's just like, fuck it, I don't want to be in the market. It's too hectic in there. What's your read on that?
What's my read on the guy who's just standing with his dog right to the back left of us?
Yeah,
He's
and you can, and
he might be just scoping it out. Like
he's just getting a
he's
full
just getting a
comprehension of
full
the market.
comprehensive view. Clearly doesn't have anything to do right now, nowhere to be.
No,
I
his
think
wife
he's
just came back with the groceries. I think I was correct in my assessment. See, she came back with the goods. He was just like, listen, hon,
Yeah,
I'm just going to post up over here.
Yeah, he's like, I'll come with you, but I don't. There's also no dogs allowed in the market, so maybe he's just watching the dog.
That's probably true. I don't know. Is there no dogs left? Like you can have, I've seen dogs in the market.
There he goes.
And he's fully in the market, my friend. He is
Now
in
he's
the market.
now he's in the market. Maybe he was just, I'll meet you here.
I might even call him a marketeer.
Go get your things. I'll meet you. He's definitely no marketeer.
Now, I brought myself a beverage today.
I did
And I
as
don't
well.
normally do that. But, that's going to get me right to the bathroom. The bathroom.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah.
So that's right there. That's a good Andrew Dice Clay to the bathroom.
Who's Andrew Dice Clay? Comedian?
Yeah, such a good comedian back in the day. He's still around. He does stuff, but he was famous for doing these rhymes. Mary, Mary, quite contrary, trim that bush, it's a bit too airy. Oh. He does like these sort of things. That was one of his famous ones.
Is this the guy who's super vulgar? He's like, so I'm standing in line at the bank, and I got my thumb up this chick's ass.
Yes, that's him. That's him.
Okay.
That's Andrew Dice, the Dice Man.
Yeah, I know him.
The Dice Man. I love the Dice Man. The Dice Man's classic. That was the first.
I love that I know him, bro.
So, of course. So that was when I was a kid, and you're not familiar with this, and it was a big thing in the 80s, was parental discretion on albums. They started to, and it was a whole thing.
Parental. I know there's child discretion, but parental discretion?
Like, yeah, that's what that means. Your parents
Should be wary of watching this.
No, have discretion for what you're listening to as a kid. So there was it was like you had to be 18 years old, you had to get somebody, and it was like a thing. It didn't last forever. Like it was like a blip in the like really like nobody is at least I haven't encountered it, and I was young enough, but when I was in 6th grade, I got 2 albums that were as raunchy as the other. Like I got a double cassette Andrew Dice Clay live at Dangerfields, and I got Life Is Too Short by the rapper Too Short. And they're both raunchy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
Vulgar.
vulgar, but it's like, but also raunch. It's kind of like, it's very toxic masculinity to its fullest, really. It's really misogynistic.
Damn.
What, you never saw like a homeless man dig into the trash can before?
No, he's throwing up in there, I think.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
We don't need that. We don't need that content on the radio. Parental discretion is advised here. Anyway, so
I just look over.
So I was like maybe in like 5th or 6th grade, and I got the Dice Man's double cassette, and I got Too Short, Life Is Too Short. And I can't remember which one my mother, he's checking himself to see if he's okay.
Yeah, he's good.
He's clear. So I got the Dice Man, and I got Life Is Too Short. And Life Is Too Short, and yeah, we're dealing with a little situation here. And the Dice Man's double cassette at Dangerfields, and it was my mother. I come out of the store.
What's homie doing?
I don't know.
Wait,
He's just wiling out, man. This guy is just wiling
he's just
out.
gripping things.
Oh, he's just eating shit.
I mean, he grabbed this umbrella for support.
No reason for that. We have to check our man. So,
He'll be good.
I come out of the store, the mall, or wherever it is, and I see
Yeah.
my mother inside the car, and she's like listening to the cassettes. Do you know what I mean? She's like
She found them
reviewing
in-
them.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Oh shit.
yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I'm like, oh no.
One of them's comedy and one of them's music, right?
Yeah. Life Is Too Short, who's an Oakland rapper.
Yeah.
Are you not familiar with I could play you a little bit.
Is that Too Short? Like the the song "Blow the Whistle"
I can't remember.
by Too Short? It goes on and on. Can't understand how it lasts so long. I must have had superpowers. Rap 225,000 hours. That guy.
This is Life Is Too Short.
Life is too short. Okay. Yeah, this is older.
This is classic though.
I remember how it all began. I used to sing
What was he feeling it?
He was pointing at the bike.
People wanna say it's just my time. Brothers like me had to work for mine. 8 years on the mic and I'm not joking. Sir, too short, coming
Straight from Oakland.
California, home of the rock. 8 woofers in the trunk beating down the block. Short dog, I'm that rapping man. I said it before.
I'm that rapping man.
Yeah, I said it before, and I'll say it again. Life is okay. So that was "Life Is Too Short," but that's not. That's the hit from the album. A lot of that album content, but you don't like track 9, for instance. Here is
Turn my headphones down just a touch.
"Pimp the Hoe." You know.
Pimp the hoe.
Yeah. So you know, it's pretty wrong. You don't want your.
You guys doing like a podcast dealing with like music artists?
Well, we're just doing. We don't even know what it is completely yet.
Okay, I want to connect with you guys. I'm a producer, but I gotta go to work right now.
Okay.
Like an Instagram and then yeah. Hey,
You want step around here so we can see you.
Yeah,
What's your name?
Don.
Don Gunner.
Everybody call me HMX.
HMX.
Michael. Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, we're doing like a podcast that's kind of you know, just fast and loose from the market. We're letting it develop slowly. You know, because this is a good little area here.
What's Instagrams?
So
I wish I could like talk more. I really have to be at work.
we don't.
Will you be back here next week? Because we don't have our Instagram fully set up yet.
We don't have anything fully that we're doing. We're doing like a. I know you're like, what are you doing out here? We're doing.
Like, it's dope, yeah.
Yeah, we're.
It reminds me of that one guy that came around and he was like working with like producers. He was like, oh, he's rapping. And honestly, I thought you was probably an artist and you was probably gonna like do some music or something like that.
We are listening to Too Short right now.
He never really listened to Life Is Too Short, so I'm playing Life Is Too Short for him because I was talking about parental discretion when I was a kid, something that's not a reality maybe. Yeah, this is our mixer here and it's on YouTube. It's called Photo. You can find it. It's Photo Play Vérité.
This is why we need to change the name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were just discussing actually. So this
It
is like a
does, yeah.
soft. This is like a soft opening.
Okay.
You know what I mean? We're just kind of like like right now, like everything is just kind of exposed. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. It's live right now. You see it. That's it.
All right, cool. So I'm gonna check you guys out.
And then send me a message on there.
On there?
You could message that thing. So send me your contact on there. You could if you subscribe and then you send and then
You could send it, put a comment or something.
yeah, put it in the comments and then me and you can connect that way. Yeah, of course.
See you, HMX.
Okay, so that's the way you get a little, you know, that's the way stuff will kick off anyway.
Well, I mean, look at the energy, the motion. Already today, we've had one guy come up. He's like, "Oh, I've seen you the past couple weeks. We
Exactly.
got HMX popping up in the cut." I mean, he's like, "Are you guys doing music? Are you mixing?" I mean, look at the setup. We got super professional. I mean, we got good gear.
Yeah. It's
Like-
professional. My mother is calling in right now. I don't know if I should answer this. I want to leave everything transparent.
You gonna take it?
Mom. Hello? 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 Are you there? Should be. Hello? Hello? It says that it's on, but I don't hear a thing. Let me see here.
Kind
Hold
of
on a
like,
second.
the no mic stand.
Hello? Hello? No. I don't know.
Is your Bluetooth connected to the thing?
Yeah. Hello? I don't know why that. Maybe it doesn't allow. See? maybe it doesn't allow unless I call. I don't know. There she is.
Hello?
Yeah, Mom. What's going on? I'm on the radio.
What's your phone?
Oh, geez, will you relax, Mom? I'm on the radio. We have you on the show right now. Why are you yelling? That's what the problem with the phone is.
Because I'm saying hello.
Okay. Mom, what's going on?
Okay.
What's up?
Radio?
Yeah. We're on the show here.
Okay, well, I don't want to talk to you.
Okay, we'll talk about it later then. I'll call you back, okay? I just wanted to leave it transparent. Everything is open here. We'll talk soon, okay?
Yeah, because...
We don't...
Okay.
What's up? I hope it's not about Vinny. Here, Mom, I'll call you in a little bit, okay?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, love you.
Love you
Bye.
too. Bye. Okay.
That's the first call out we've ever had on the show.
We've tried to do call outs before. I think I tried to call my buddy Darius, and he was just like, he's just a cantankerous character.
I want to call somebody who's in prison.
Wow, why?
I don't know.
You don't even know anyone who's in prison. Why would you want to call them?
Just say, like, how you doing? What's
Why
it like?
would we waste their one phone call on us, is what I ask.
Well, what if nobody else is calling them?
What's the guy that owns Weiser? What's his name?
Mr. Weiser.
Mr. Weiser. What's his first name? All right. I wanted
we
to
get
talk
him
to him.
up?
He's a great character.
We-
I want
we
to talk
gotta
to
get
him.
him
I'm
up.
going to get the guy Kenny to come by from Garden of. He used to work for Maps.
Call him up.
Do you know Maps, right? I don't have his number. I just run into him at the market.
So, like, he would walk around with, like, the cameras all over and do the street view?
No.
I've seen that before. I saw a guy in
it's
Venice who was getting...
multidisciplinary association for, it's a, what is that? We have some... Well, it's multidisciplinary association for psychedelic studies.
Huh.
So we have a little maybe tour group of some kind right here. We're not sure. We have
Yeah, definitely a tour group.
we have
Oh, do you wanna-
a mother and daughter. You always know when it's a mother and daughter. They're like, the mother and daughter vibes where they're kind of like almost like sisters.
Yeah.
Do you ever you know that type of dynamic?
Sure.
Like you and your dad are like brothers. You're not really. You and your dad don't go. But Joey and Marley have that vibe.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's something you don't see a lot.
Not really. I don't know. Joey and Marley are like roommates. And
Holy shit.
and
It's
Jo-
even more demoted. They're not even like brothers. They're
And
like
Jo-
roomies.
They're like roommates where one roommate is just mooching off the other.
That's kind of it.
Where
That's more
one
the-
roommate pays the rent and the other roommate is always being told to pay rent, but he doesn't.
Yeah.
And the one roommate is like attached to the other guy and he wants him to do better, so he's like not willing to kick him out because he doesn't want to like him to be on the street.
Because it's his father. Yeah, I know that dynamic. That's what I'm saying.
Like
So-
Joe's afraid to kick Marley out because
He's like, what will happen to Marley?
what will happen to Marley?
Yeah, well, that's what your parents are doing as well, though. Gunnar.
Yeah, but my parents got fucking balls. They
What?
actually kicked me out. They
With-
sent me to
with a caveat. They put you into a
I had to-
dormitory.
They put me into sober living.
Yeah, which is the closest thing you can get to a dormitory. I mean, it's a perfect situation for you in a way. They're like,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
set him up with a place to live with parents. It's like you have parents outside of the house.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
They're
right?
they're like, we're done doing this parenting shit, so we're
Yeah.
gonna pay somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
So now I get my drug tests every week, and
Yeah.
I got my responsibilities. I gotta do my chores every day, and it's cool.
Yeah.
It's a place is a vibe. It's a good. I got a nice bed.
And it's you have roommate, like you're literally in the room with someone?
Yeah. So
How many roommates you got? We've been over this before, but
4 roommates in the same room, including me.
including so you have 3
Or no,
roommates.
Yeah, 3 other
And
roommates.
who are your roommates? The 3 of them.
We've got Jack. We've got Julian.
Uh huh.
And we've got... I can't remember his name right now. But
You don't even remember one of your roommates' name.
No, I don't.
Okay, how would you
But
describe Jack?
Jack, I would say, is... He's like... calm. He's a taller guy. He's a ginger with short hair. And it's funny because he doesn't...
Crew cut? Why is it
like-
is it shaved when you
It's
say
a shave.
short?
It's a shave. Yeah, he got
Okay.
a shave. He got a shaved head. He's got a large head.
Mm-hmm.
And he works at Barry's Fitness, and he's never worked out.
Huh. How do you get a job at Barry's Fitness having never been worked out yourself?
I don't know. I have no idea. It seems like, I guess they need people to like check people in and stuff. So it's like they'll take anyone to do that. You know what I mean?
It doesn't require much.
No, you don't. It doesn't require. It's not like he's the trainer, right?
Yeah. He's
Right.
just all you need for that position is a little bit of PR work.
Yeah, you got to know how to talk to people.
Yeah, and
And-
maybe he worked in retail before or something
Sure,
like that. Do you know that about
Yeah,
him?
he did. He worked at TJ Maxx. He's a funny guy. He's like
TJ Maxx.
He's like a gamer.
Mm-hmm.
He's like a gamer and also
The tall ginger.
he's like tall and stubby at the same time.
Interesting.
it's just quite
How do you
interesting.
be tall and stubby at the same time?
I think he's just tall and a little overweight. That's what it is.
Okay, so he's a big guy.
He's a big guy, yeah. Yeah,
He's a big guy. And so
He's a big, and he sleeps upright.
now this is a couple where they're like sisters.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like they both have camo on. They're like they have the same stylist.
They do. Yeah.
It's just a vibe. You know, when you're like when you match your partner.
This is like and like right here for sure.
Yeah, and you might see that with same-sex couples more often, but in this situation, because sometimes
I don't know. Same-sex couples, I'm not saying like
they
they're
always look alike.
not always. I think more men look alike. Same-sex women couples, there's usually one like more masculine girl and one more feminine.
Yes, there's one that is maybe more butch, as they'd say, right? And in the male iteration of that, there might be the one that's the top and one that's the bottom.
Yes. Sure.
I didn't make the lexicon up, man. You know,
No,
I'm just
you didn't.
don't kill the
You're just
messenger.
saying how it is, bro.
I'm just talking about how it is. So what I'm trying to say is this dynamic here. I'm not even sure who the top or the bottom is. You know what I mean?
Because the dude's a little bit feminine and the girl's a little bit masculine.
Yeah. So you're like meeting there. There's
Yeah,
there you know, like it's like his estrogen levels are higher, her testosterone levels are higher. Like is that what you're
Nah,
No, you don't know. We don't even want to talk about
We don't even
know about levels.
We don't even know about levels.
I just find it interesting. You know, I like to get, and maybe I could even get a close up on it if I wanted to, but I think we can clearly see what's going on over here.
Sure.
But yeah, that was just my assessment. Like when I was talking about fathers and sons that are more like brothers, which is less often, in my opinion, than the dynamic of
mothers and daughters being like sisters.
Exactly. I think that's more common, and I think
definitely.
And I think that might be endemic of, perhaps, I'm just going to make a theory here, that maybe it's as a result of divorce. Mothers often get custody, and in divorce situations, a more sisterly dynamic would develop in a less nuclei sort of family, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like what my
but I think
my cousin has. Like her parents got divorced, And so her dad's like her dad, and her mom is like her sister.
Yeah, you see it. It's just something that kind of
Yeah.
like seems to be
Yeah.
a lot more common.
Well, because the father's role in the relationship is to be the disciplinary.
It could be. It could be. I
Right.
mean, we've seen it.
I mean,
but
I think a dad, part of being a dad is to like know.
he lays the
You
law.
gotta lay the rules down. You know, you gotta be the man of the house. You know, you gotta be the rock for the family.
But sometimes you notice that it's the mother. Okay,
mothers are more nurturing.
Yeah, but don't
And,
you
like-
sometimes notice that it often is the mother that is
In
enacting that sort of discipline in a way, and then she's just asking
the dad.
the dad.
Dad's just like, yeah, I do
Sure.
what your mom says.
Yeah.
yeah,
He's just an enforcer of some sort.
sure.
But just kind of like a paper enforcer, like a paper champion, but like a paper enforcer, like a guy that's kind of like, listen, I don't
I'm
necessarily
just watching
agree
the game,
with,
drinking my beer, like do what your mom says.
Yes. I
Yeah,
don't necessarily agree with her, but I agree indelibly with your mother because she's my partner and she makes the rules for me too.
Yeah.
So just fucking listen and don't give me a hard
Yeah.
time and get out of here.
Yeah.
And don't make me go. In the olden days, it'd be like, don't make me get the belt. Or go pick a switch out in the yard if you were like part of the Jackson 5 or something like that. You know, we're told to pick their own switch.
What's the switch?
Like a you'd break a branch off of a tree and you'd create your own switch, which was a switch is like a term to use to describe like you'd beat your kid with a switch. And so pick your own switch. Like, could you imagine like being sent out into the yard to get your own device?
To get beat with.
What kind of, speaking of
Jeez.
discretion, would you use, and would you pick like a more denser, larger, something less whippy sort of branch, or would you pick
I would probably pick something in the.
something that stings less?
Well, if
more
you go,
blunt
if you
object?
go, if you go lighter, you're getting more of that whip crack.
Yeah.
But to get that whip crack, you gotta be skilled with the whip. So
Well, you would imagine a father sending the kid out to the yard. Joe Jackson is who I'm referring to, and that's
Sure.
where I heard the story. He knows how to use a switch.
yeah.
Like, I think that you got your own kid going out to the yard. Like, it's almost like go to the dugout to your, like, a bat boy and grab my bat. It's like that.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, I'm too important. I'm the home run hitter of this team. I'm the cleanup hitter here. Go to the dugout and grab my bat. So he's a hitter if
Yeah,
you got a
yeah.
fucking bat boy grabbing your bat. So what do you think of a father of 5
What
knows
would
his
I-
way around a switch if he
I
got you go out there
definitely wouldn't
picking it yourself in the yard?
I would definitely go something thinner and bigger, and
Okay.
and like
I was forced to
because if it's something that's thick and heavy, bro, you can break bones.
You
with
can
that.
break bones. So what I'm trying to say is I was forced to sort of consider the psychology of the child left with that sort of, could you imagine picking, when I had to imagine Michael Jackson when I heard this horrible story. His father was very abusive, and this is very famous. But I remember reading the detail or hearing the detail that he was actually told his children. Like, go get my belt. It's like
Yeah.
not only am I going to whip you, but I'm going to have you. I ain't even going to get up to get your own whipping device. You know what I mean? Like, bring it to me. It's so it's so dehumanizing that you'd actually even go get it for.
Sure.
Like that just blew my mind.
That's like a whole nother level. That almost might be worse.
Yeah. No. Of course, the anticipation. That's why I said it.
The mental whipping is worse than the actual
Yes,
physical.
Yeah. The anxiety, living in the anxiety of
Yeah,
that walking out to the yard, going to the tree.
Yeah.
Like, you can imagine the anguish right?
Sure.
So that's what just a little thought there. I don't know how I got
I
on
don't
it.
even know how we got there.
I don't know how we got there either.
It's melon season, guys.
It's still melon
It's
season.
still melon season, and
How long will melon season last for is what I want to know.
I think it just started, and we don't even have all the varieties yet. I think it'll last for another couple months.
Uh-huh. And I'm going to, I could just lower it. Ooh, look at that. You can just lower that in.
You could just lower it in.
And then
You could zoom. You see the zoom?
I'm going to zoom in, and now I'm getting, see, this is another level to our,
So we were talking about going for a journey, Nepal.
but I was also thinking about, and it reminds me, the anguish of that sort of yoga, I will say, taught me when I did Bikram, and I did.
Is Bikram still a thing?
I don't know, and I don't know if it ever was a thing. I mean, I guess it was a thing, but there was a lot of hot yoga kind of like floating around in New York City at the time, and someone bought me.
Did he start hot yoga? Was he the first?
I think Bikram, yeah, that particular guy creating that like 100 and like a sweat lodge of yoga sort of vibe.
Sure.
But and he had a headset similar to mine, walking around. It was a massive, facility that he'd be walking around and sort of,
Teaching the yoga.
yeah, on a headset like on an intercom like
Yeah.
this, and
Yeah. Because he would do it in big groups,
big,
right?
huge groups. So, but in New York, it was there was some hot yoga places or Bikram yoga places, and someone bought me a week-long pass to one. Like I wouldn't have. I don't. It's not necessarily something that I would have gravitated to.
Yeah.
And it was very close to me on Lower East Side, and I went for a week, and I learned quickly that when you go back into the Vipassana position, like the laying down between poses,
What?
yeah, you would like go into a full, like in between poses, you do I guess the 26. So Bikram is very similar to Ashtanga, the one that we were talking about.
Yes.
So it has a 26 pose.
Are you
thing.
talking about the chaturanga, where you're going from upward dog to downward dog?
No, there's in between positions you would have a moment of rest. You don't just jump right from position.
I mean, not always. Most rest is done in downward dog.
No, yeah,
From my experience.
You could do it like that too, but then there's what I recall it being a Vipassana position, which is the dead position.
That's Shavasana.
Is that Shavasana?
Shavasana is corpse pose.
What's Vipassana? It's
I've never heard of Vipassana.
okay. So corpse pose. What is it again?
Shavasana.
Shavasana. So corpse.
And that happens at the end of class.
Sure, I know that. Yeah,
Which is like
but that's what was different.
a
So
drop, almost like a drop of water falling into like a lake. That's sort of like
yep.
what Shavasana sort of is. Like it's a drop into a meditation, because prior to Shavasana there's usually a thanking or a blessing, or some sort of cross-legged lotus pose, eyes closed. Or maybe that's after. Regardless, Shavasana is like the thing at the end of the class where the whole practice of the physical now transmutes into the mental and the relaxation, the meditation.
Yeah, but you're thinking the whole time. What are you doing when you're doing the poses? Your mind's not going places?
No, I'm just in the moment, in the poses. Because
yeah, I don't. My mind doesn't work like that. Like if I'm doing one thing, if I'm running, for instance, or I'm doing an activity, I'm still having abstract thoughts. I mean,
totally.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I have abstract thoughts. Sometimes I'm looking around, like trying to understand the poses.
Sure. So what
That's
I'm
why
trying
I
to
think
say
I
is you're
love-
capable of having. So during these abstract thoughts, what I'm trying to say is that I noticed that the anguish in which I felt between poses, like a rest pose,
Mm-hmm.
especially in Bikram yoga, which is pretty athletic. Like it's like, and some of those poses, you're really pushing yourself because you want to do well and you want to push yourself, and you're like sweating on yourself, and it's uncomfortable.
You're like stretching, but also muscling at the same time and relaxing at the same time. So it requires a whole lot of attention.
Yeah. So what I mean is that some of the poses that I realized that so if I had to break it into two segments, in the pose would be working, and in the rest would be resting. So I would be resting and working, working and resting, resting, work, going back. It's oscillating in this way, right? You're doing this. So, and then I started to think about it like, I'm like, okay, the anguish in which I feel before going into the pose, like the anticipation of the pose being difficult, it being a challenging, all these things, was just as much work as actually doing the work, right?
What? Wow, I've never had that before.
So yeah, this is what I'm trying. This is the epiphany that I had in doing it, and
So
I
you
related
couldn't even rest because you
you
were
can't rest
because
That's
you
what I'm
were
yes.
anticipating the next thing.
Exactly. So then I started to think that it's all just rest. Like in a state of work, you can get into the state of mind of it being rest. Like meaning that if it's all relative, right?
Sure.
Like, and I mean, that would be how you would improve like pain threshold or whatever these things are that that you start to think that in moments of extended pain, it would just become relative at a certain point, right? You'd just be like, I'm living with this. I have to. There's no other choice. There's no other choice. So what I mean is anticipation.
Gio. What's up, bro?
Anticipation of and something. Anticipation of and in actual pose is the same. It's one and the same, and why not just do the work, which is, and not live in anguish or anticipation of the work. That's what I find that it's funny that even procrastination, which is one of my big problems in life, is that you're in anguish the whole time.
Totally. I mean,
while procrastinating.
I discarded my procrastination.
You discarded it?
I discarded it.
What do you mean?
You
got rid of it.
I let go of it. I threw it out. Like, it's not something that I do anymore.
Really?
When there's something that I feel inspired to do or I know I need to do,
you just jump to it?
I just do it. Because it's like, I feel so good about it. And I enjoy it. And I'm present with it.
But those are all
and
just
it's
euphemistic sort of terms, you know,
And
like
I feel
I'm
like-
present with it,
Sure,
like
but I feel
sit
like-
with it, like
feel like-
and that's like filler stuff.
Bro,
what do you really feel?
I really do feel that. And I think entering into each activity with boldness and with full commitment, as in like, I'm just going to take this one step right here, right now. And
right here, right now.
It's just like doing the cold plunge where like some people will like dip their hand in, they'll feel the water.
Of course, you just jump in.
And then they'll like dip their toe in. They'll feel the water. They're like, oh my God, I got to get in. I can't believe I have to do this. You're creating so much stress for your body just doing that.
Oh my God, you're totally tightening up. So when I do
versus just diving straight in
when I do
and fully submerging your body.
When we backpack, I normally bathe every night. I try to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I just know what it's going to be like when I get in the tent or I'm getting in the sleeping bag and I feel sticky. I'm like, I don't want that. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
I'll jump in some water. When you're backpacking, you need water close by for your cooking, everything else. So you usually have some sort of stream, something, even the smallest of streams, but they're usually glacial off, you know, they like sort of,
Sure.
and they're fucking freezing. And I've just learned that's another situation where I just don't do the tip around. You just get in.
Exactly.
And sometimes you're in a situation where you kind of have to. Like I said, the stream is so small. I've been in cases where the stream is so small that I'm scooping it out with my cook set on, pouring it onto my head. But
But you're still going for it. You're not just like, you're going for it as much as you possibly can in that
Absolutely,
moment.
yeah.
And that's what I feel about the yoga too, is that I like to do these classes that are not only difficult, but also some classes are just like easy and I can just sit with it. Like I did this one class in Colorado called supported yoga, and it was
Yeah.
literally just laying around with a bunch of pillows.
Can I ask you, what are your thoughts, speaking of yoga, on Buddhist like prayer beads as an accoutrement on a wrist by like white dudes, or like, you know, like you know what I mean? Like I just
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
them just now, and I'm not gonna
Like those wooden
point it out or
Buddhist beads.
yes,
They're cool, man. They're dope.
you're like as a fashion. You think they're cool as a fashion, or do you think it's a misappropriation of
I
a?
think it's fine. I mean, if you want to rock the Buddhist beads, like, by all means.
But how about if it's like a religious? How would it be?
How do you
Can I-
feel about people rocking a cross chain? It's like
and
a
they're not
same-
religious?
It's like the same thing. There's like an OnlyFans
Okay,
girl
can I
who's
wear?
rocking
Can I wear?
like a
is
cross.
Is it okay if I wore a yarmulke and I wasn't Jewish?
If you wanted to.
Now I'll tell you something. When I traveled,
I personally, I wouldn't be offended. I don't get offended by somebody who's wearing a MAGA hat or somebody who's wearing a Biden hat. Like
no,
it
I
just-
know that it's not offensive. It's obviously, I'm not
is,
like it's not
you
gonna
know?
like upset me like fundamentally. I'm saying like I'm making a judgment based on like style. Does this seem appropriate? Would they
Yeah.
be? Would that group be offended?
I don't know. I mean, you're asking me to make
Okay,
a judgment,
can I ask
and
you,
I don't
do you
judge
think
people.
I'm not asking you. I'm saying be objective. Put yourself in the shoes of somebody like, would a rabbi, for instance, find it offensive if a non-Jewish person was wearing a yarmulke? I'm asking. Would they think it's weird?
I don't know.
If you were wearing it as a form of fashion, even. Would the Jewish community, let's say if I was a fashion designer and a part of my design this season, spring, summer 2025, was a yarmulke. You laugh, but I'm asking.
That's
Do
rad.
you think, okay, it is rad, and I might even do it. I might even bring it into like payas.
You might even do a yarmulke with like a hole in the top.
or whatever, you know, like all I'm saying is that if you did something that's like we integrate certain fashions,
I don't think that's offensive. I mean,
and I'm going to bring this back to yoga soon.
Let me say something too. I saw this video of this guy who's wearing like sombrero. He's got a tape-on mustache. He's got like a mariachi kind of.
He's got
drape
a tape on. He's actually taped on a mustache,
taped on a mustache, and he's got this like mariachi outfit on, and he's asking
like
people
a poncho.
like a poncho.
Yeah.
And he's asking people in LA. He's like, "Hey, what do you think of my outfit? Do you think it's offensive?" And he's asking these cultural, like he's asking white girls, he's asking black girls, he's asking white guys, black guys, and all in between as far as like, you know,
Is this offensive?
Is this offensive? And they're all saying, "Are you Mexican?" And he's like, "No." And they're like, "Yes, that is offensive. You're not from that culture. You can't wear that. This is racism." Then he goes across the border to Mexico.
Yeah.
Same thing. Asks a Mexican guy. He's like, "What do you think of my outfit?" He's like, "You look nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
I
It's
know.
a good outfit. You should." And then he's asking all of these different people who are from Mexico. He's not
Yes,
even,
yeah. It's
and-
usually the case.
and
That's
they're
usually
just like
the case.
They're like, "Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I like your outfit. It looks good, man. Keep doing you."
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's all about. It's all about just the support and the love and the expression. It's like we don't need to put up these barriers and judgments to say like you can't wear a yarmulke because you're not Jewish. If you like the style of a yarmulke and you want to rock that,
By all means.
by all means.
Hey, listen, I'm all for people doing whatever the fuck they want. You know what I mean? Freedom of expression, freedom of do whatever you want. I'm just asking, like you just answered the question with going to Mexico, and maybe that's not so much of a religious group, and maybe it's a little bit more touchy with certain like groups, right? Maybe you. It's funny that when you even say this now, often. And this became a popular theme, and I even think that your buddy, who you referred to, or you like Jake Paul, and Jake Paul just had a boxing match. Listen before you chirp in. You were about to go, like relax. So Jake Paul just had a boxing match with Julio Cesar Chavez's son, and he's a very he's a legendary Mexican boxer. Julio Cesar Chavez. And his son, not so much so, kind of has, he's like the an heir too. So it's like, like sort of he was a rich kid. He didn't grow up in a small village in Mexico and fought his way to the top. He was privileged and sort of, he's a fuck up, but he also became a boxer himself. He's become a champion. I mean, he has a pedigree of he's a Chavez. So Junior fought Jake Paul, and Jake Paul, as some sort of provocation, and this is something that like Floyd Mayweather did, a lot of great boxers have done this when they're facing a Mexican, is that they come to the ring, Mexican colored shorts on, wearing a sombrero, doing everything that you're talking about, and they're doing it as a provocation, like as a taunting, as a fuck you.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is that it's a provocation still to do
in certain settings.
So what I'm trying to say, even the guy that walked around in around like woke, quasi woke, sort of people in the United States and asked around and said he's provoking them, which is an interesting subgroup, we should say, right? Of people that are woke or like, super like, oh, I care so much about, other people, but the people that they're actually protecting, they're like sort of the gatekeepers in some way.
Yeah, I'm helping these people when like the people didn't even ask for your help.
Yeah, they don't need you to be the shot caller for their sort of situation
it's like the volunteer sheriff.
Yeah, we don't need you mediating what people are doing, and in the end, it's the audience that's more like. So the actual adversary, like Julio Cesar Chavez,
did he win?
No, Jake Paul won, I think.
Okay.
He won like a split decision, or maybe. Hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Paul's like a great businessman. I'm not really a huge fan of
of what he's doing.
Of what he's doing with like.
You're just a fan of his business accoutrement.
I would not say I'm a fan.
Fuck him.
Not that either. I wish him the best.
How you doing?
He's like.
Okay, so
he's like,
are we returning the Patagonia bag, or what do we? So like,
I gotta hit the bathroom.
You got to hit the John.
I gotta hit the Johns.
So when you hit the John, can you do me a favor, and go over and remind Kenny to come over here from Maps?
Yeah, I'll go get Kenny.
Kenny is over at Garden of. He gets a break at one point.
Yeah, I'll go get him.
Okay.
I don't even know where the John is. Oh, I do know where the John is. All right.
Looks like we had a little glitch on the film, but it's okay now. Gunner's going to be using that John.
Yes, you're listening to Photoplay Vérité, son. Photoplay Vérité. Radio Vérité. Oh yeah, it's Radio Vérité. Radio Vérité. I spray with no delay. We got another caller coming in. Oh, hell no. Hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, is this Michael?
Yeah, this is Michael.
Hey, Michael. It's Seth from Southern Hill.
Oh, Seth, I forgot to get back to you. Yeah, Seth, do you mind if I call you back in a little bit? I'm in the middle of a show here. I actually answered this
No.
on the podcast.
Oh, awesome. No problem.
I'll call you back. No problem. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
No, it's just
Sounds
it's
great,
it's
man.
running right now,
All good.
and you're
All
on
good.
air,
Get
but
back to work.
we don't got much listeners here, so don't worry about it.
Not tripping. Have a good one, man.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, bye-bye.
We're back. Oh! Wow, jump right in. Grab. Oh yeah, put that whole setup on. Hold on a second here. So we got. Can you hear me?
Okay, so how you doing, Kenny? Oh, wait, let me get this music down a little bit. I'm glad you came over. Did Gunnar send you over? Mm-hmm. He reminded you? Okay, good. How's that sound over there?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. You might want to hold that mic a little closer. What's going on, Kenny?
Just living the dream.
Yeah?
You know, out here at the farmer's market.
And this is Kenny. Can you tell the listeners, because we don't have many listeners yet, but I'm telling you, it'll take off soon.
Absolutely. It already is.
I love your hat, LSD, by the way.
Are you a fan of the team?
And in the running community, you know, it's long, slow distance is the term that LSD is a popular sort of, what is that, an anagram?
Yeah,
or
acronym.
Acronym, sorry.
Yeah.
Anagram is when the letters are mixed up and you spell a word from it, right?
Yeah.
I watched
Bananagrams.
Is that what that, how's,
Something.
are those, there's also Teddy Grams.
those are my favorite.
So Kenny, what's your last name, Kenny? Or you don't want to tell? You don't want to tell the audience that?
Kenny Mack.
Kenny Mack.
Yep.
Okay. And Kenny, you work at Garden of Farms, which is one of my favorite farms.
Yes.
At the farmers market.
The finest.
I would say.
Yeah.
Are the vegetables triple washed?
They are triple washed, spun. You know, we put a lot of love and care, and
I would
effort,
say,
and time.
Yeah.
Subsequently, money.
Yeah, I love that about. So you work on the farm, right?
I live on the farm,
Yep.
and I am very fortunate that I don't have to do much of the backbreaking work.
Yeah.
I do a lot more of the fun stuff, which is here at the market.
Yeah.
Getting to, you know, sell the veg and make those connections with the customers and give all the recipe recommendations and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and you live on. I'm going to pull this out for 1 second. And you live on the farm, and what's that like? What
It's
is
incredible.
Yeah.
So we're in the Santa Ynez Valley, which is Santa Barbara County. We're right on the other side of the Santa Ynez Mountains. So it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. There's a lot of vineyards.
Yeah.
Lots of like olive groves and everything. Kind of this like quaint little western town. Which, you know, I had moved before moving up to the farm, I was living in LA.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a big change
For
of pace
sure.
and everything. But
Where did you live in LA?
I was in West Adams.
West Adams. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, not far from here.
Not far from here.
Yeah. And how long did you live there for?
I was there for a year. Before that, I was on a property in Santa Clarita Valley. We're tucked up in the Angeles National Forest.
Yeah.
And
you're originally from San Jose, you told me? Or?
No, I grew up in the Inland Empire.
Okay.
Out near Riverside.
Yeah. Interesting. What was that like growing up out there?
Suburban, middle class, you know, very, very good childhood growing up. You know, parents took care of me.
A lot of nice trails out there, actually.
Yeah.
We go out there with my partner, she rides. There's a woman that owns a stable out there that they race them at Tevis Cup, which is the 100-mile like sort of an endurance race for horses. And so when she goes out there and rides, I'll go out there and run and it's very hot out there. I will say significantly hotter than it is here. We
Definitely
live
the desert.
So in the day, you're like, wow, that's some real heat.
Yeah.
And so, did you kind of escape that as a kid?
Yeah.
Was it like AC? I'm trying to get an image of that suburbia that you're referring to.
Yeah. It was typical suburbs.
Yeah.
I grew up in Corona, Norco area.
Okay.
And Norco, if you're not familiar, they're known as Horsetown, USA. They have like something like the most horses per capita.
See, there you go. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
It feels like it's like it's an equestrian area, sort of. You know, like I get that vibe, or there's a tradition of that sort of there.
Yeah.
Although there are
lots of horse property.
Yeah.
There's like no sidewalks. It's all horse trails.
Yes.
You'll have like a hitching post in front of your local Circle K.
Yeah.
That's kind of the vibe, which unfortunately they're also, with that came lots of like Confederate flags being flown out front of houses and stuff.
So you do have that odd, and I will say that Los Angeles, me coming from New York and the East Coast in general, that you have less of this, we see Dixie flags and that sort of thing in the South maybe more, but I do notice that almost this like, in Los Angeles proper, you can have this almost hillbilly, like Beverly Hillbillies makes a lot more sense to me now, having lived. You expect it to be more cosmopolitan, but it actually is less that.
Yeah.
And it feels more pastoral, or sort of like like the margins exist everywhere.
Yeah. Rather
than like in like sort of Manhattan, you very seldom would encounter something like these cultural extremes that you sort of see, that like you said in Riverside, or even like I see it in Los Angeles proper, like you'll see a monster truck driving down any it's just all, and you get that there, but I mean it's just I feel a little bit more of this crossover, or sort of just like you say, Dixie flags I can imagine being a theme.
It's not so much anymore. I mean, maybe within the last, couple of years or whatever since the new administration.
Yeah.
But I will say that area in general has definitely become more diverse as it's become more developed.
Yeah.
But it was, when I was in high school, I was very much ready to.
So you lived here your whole life through until high school?
Moved away for college, moved back after college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to school in Arizona.
And so this leads me, because I'm aware, and having spoken to you over at the stand and stuff like that, what did you study in college, and it kind of primed you for working for MAPS?
Yeah. So I studied psychology. My plan was to practice therapy. And during undergrad, I had my first psychedelic experience. It was very positive. I was very fascinated by what I just experienced.
Yeah.
And
was it on mushrooms? Okay.
And I just started doing a bunch of research, kind of went down the rabbit hole of the war on drugs.
Yeah.
I then came across a clinical study that was using MDMA to treat PTSD. And this was...
what year was this, Kenny?
This was like 2000, probably like 13-ish.
Okay.
And maybe a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But the study was conducted by MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies.
Yeah.
I was fascinated by this. I couldn't believe why, or I was shocked as to why this wasn't made available for people. That sort of subsequently took me down the rabbit hole of the war on drugs. Through all of that, I then came across what's called the Zendo Project, which was a organization supported by MAPS, where they would go to large like music and art festivals like Burning Man, Lightning in a Bottle, and they would provide psychedelic peer support.
Yeah.
So basically they would create a safe space for people having challenging experience, whether that's
set and setting.
Yeah. And they would have a team of trained volunteers to provide peer support for people having these challenging psychedelic experiences. And we basically just sit with them for as long as needed.
Yeah.
Provide whatever support is needed to make it a potentially positive, or at least a not negative experience.
For sure.
And
because it could potentially be so at those large gatherings.
It's already such an overwhelming
Experience.
environment
Yeah, for sure.
experience.
Yeah.
And so, adding substances to the mix, whether that's psychedelics
Yeah.
or cannabis or alcohol, anything,
Yeah.
or even just no substances, anxiety,
For sure.
losing
Yeah.
your car keys, breaking up with your girlfriend,
all the variables that could possibly happen.
all the things
Yeah.
that happen at festivals.
Yeah.
And so I started volunteering with them in 2015.
Yeah.
And for about 4 years, I was spending most of my time working with the Zendo Project
Yes.
and other harm reduction organizations,
Okay.
going to these festivals.
Yeah.
And I was working part-time as a teacher, and the other time I was at festivals.
Yeah.
And through that, through the connections I made, I also was doing a lot of work with like local psychedelic awareness groups, such as the Aware Project. Shout out Ashley Booth. And I started working as a night attendant on the phase 3 MDMA for PTSD clinical trial.
And what would that? So when you say on the night attendant, it's sort of like they would stay at these facilities, correct?
Exactly.
Like if you give me an idea of what I can imagine, it's maybe it's kind of like a dormitory of some sort that they
Yeah, so it was at basically like this site specifically is where they would hold the therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And the participant would come in, have all day intensive therapy with a therapist team. And then they would need to stay overnight. And my role would be to come in and basically just provide whatever support, whether it was talking or not talking, not engaging. I would prepare food, dinner, whatever it was.
And how many
breakfast.
patients or sort of client? How would they be referred to? Is they patients? These
Patient, subjects.
Yeah. That's a sort of
Participant.
Participant.
Participants
Okay.
probably
So
the best.
the participants. How many would there be? Let's say
It would be just one.
One. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very it's and are these often when PTSD? It could be from anything, obviously.
anything, yeah.
But trauma, was it war trauma or what?
Yeah,
what were the-
sometimes I would say, and this is speaking more generally to like the trials. A lot of times it was veterans, war veterans, assault victims, maybe DV, domestic violence, really just anything. But a lot of the participants would have chronic resistant PTSD, meaning they have tried numerous forms of therapy, numerous different
Nothing seems to work.
drugs, meds, or anything. Nothing seems to work. And what was really amazing is that when I first came across this study, which was still in phase 2, and it had a very small sample size, so take that for what it's worth. The statistics showed that participants, mind you, they had chronic resistant, nothing worked. After having just one MDMA therapy session, 83% of the participants could no longer even be diagnosed as having PTSD.
Wow.
They didn't even show...
Just one experience.
Yeah, one experience.
And it just that rewiring.
Yeah.
Sort of, or
Yeah,
I
kind
always
of.
think of it as like wiping the hard drive in a sense.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. There's this really cool analogy that's not mine, it's maybe a little outdated based on like the science that has since come out, but a really good way to kind of think of it is like your memory is a bookshelf.
Yeah.
And your bookshelf is full of these memories or full of these books. And every time that you remember a memory or reread one of these books, you're not only rereading it, but you're also rewriting it based on whatever sort of headspace you're in at that moment.
Yeah.
And so the great thing about MDMA is that it works on or has an influence on the amygdala, which is the fear processing center of your brain.
Yeah.
And basically it kind of down-regulates that. And so the MDMA therapy kind of allows you to reread this book, but since your amygdala or fear processing center is sort of downregulated or kind of turned off, you are able to reread these books, revisit these memories without having all of the overwhelming anxiety or without having the really negative associations with these memories or with the trauma, and so it sort of allows you to explore it without being overwhelmed or
Yeah.
being overtaken by the
Sure.
negative emotions.
It's like turning off of the faucet a bit. Like you're
Yeah.
just like, here, let's just like turn this one function off, sort of, and let's you read it with new eyes again.
Yeah.
Sort of the
Yeah.
experience at least, and could probably very likely see the experience in a positive light.
Yeah.
Rather than to continue rewriting it in a
sort of a
more and more.
negative,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's almost cycling on the negative every time that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it and so to bring it back to the original. So when you first had your experience, did you take like what they would refer to as a heroic dose
No.
of mushrooms? Was it just like like sort of a micro dose, or what would you?
I'd say like a fair.
A fair amount.
Fair amount.
It was significant though enough.
Yeah.
That of an experience to sort of change almost the trajectory of your life.
Oh, absolutely, it did. Yeah, and then from there, because then at that point, I went to a big party school. Drinking was a huge part of the culture there.
Yeah.
And I just sort of like found myself becoming less and less interested in alcohol
For
and
sure.
became more and more interested in sort of the realm of psychedelia. And as I kind of
What school was this again? Remind me?
Arizona State.
Arizona State. I don't think you told. Okay, so
Yeah.
that is a party school.
Big party school.
And it's famously a party school to the point that where guys that were big partiers all the way from New Jersey that I went to high school with went there specifically
just to-
because it was
yeah.
such a party school.
Absolutely.
Kind of fratty.
Yeah,
Even.
yeah.
Was it-
I was not in a frat.
No, okay,
I'm
yeah,
not
no.
a-
No,
not a
I can
frat
see
fan,
you, and
but-
and I was going to say that you, funny that you have this experience because you can already see. Okay, you went there to study psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You have a pre-inclination of your curiosity about the mind to begin
Yeah,
with, right?
right.
Like so, you're almost like the perfect subject to take psychedelia.
Yeah.
I would imagine that would be the sort of go hand in hand.
Yeah. And it's sort of like you said, sort of like set me on this trajectory of, I would say that psychedelics have been pivotal in so many aspects of my life, growth, becoming the person that I am today, finding my own style,
Yeah.
self-acceptance, self-love,
Sure.
my sexuality, so many different aspects of my life.
Yeah.
I feel psychedelics have really influenced and helped me sort of navigate and kind of create my values and morals, and it's been transformative to say the least.
And it's funny because, and I don't know if it's kind of loosely becoming a theme, or maybe the farmers market sort of lends itself to like these sort of people or characters. But there was a gentleman here that had have you seen him around? He's wearing a mushroom hat.
No.
Well, we had a loose conversation. It was kind of like that day I wasn't prepared, and also I didn't know what his credibility was either, because he was just wearing a mushroom hat.
Sure.
And sort of, and you and I have a history of talking, so I didn't take a deep interest in discussing, but we sort of touched on a few things like like Timothy Leary saying that feeling that every politician should have taken
Sure.
some sort of psychedelics in order to sort of, it'd make obviously the world a better place.
Yeah.
And your proof of that is what you're saying, that it's fundamental not only to your career trajectory, but your entire life course trajectory.
Yeah.
And so what brought you, so obviously it's analogous to farming. And this is how you're working on the farm now, or is like...
So I, like I had mentioned,
this was an organic vegetable farm.
Yeah, it's kind of very. I would have never expected myself to be at this farm.
Yeah.
So like I had mentioned, I was teaching part-time and working harm reduction at a lot of these festivals, and that was actually like a big part of my time spent was at these festivals. And then the pandemic came around, and I lost my job teaching, and schools were out, and the festival world was just completely put on pause.
Yeah. And you didn't teach from home or anything, like remote teaching?
No.
Okay, because my partner, she was a teacher at the time. And we would, in the summers, go out to Washington State and backpack and stuff like that. And then we extended our trip into the fall that year because she was able to teach remotely. And she eventually lost the job because with our sort of vaccination situation sort of stuff. But once we had to return it, actually, once she would have had to have potentially returned, it became more complicated then. But but there was this remote sort of thing, and
I was also ready to be done anyways. So it was
absolutely, you were like, this is a good.
I had actually gone down to Colombia and sat in ayahuasca ceremony with an indigenous community down there, and made it back from Colombia.
This is during COVID.
This was 2 weeks before COVID. So I was in down in Colombia in February. Yeah. Came back, made it back for 2 weeks, and then everything shut down.
Can I ask who your shaman was there?
No. It was an indigenous community.
Okay, cool.
So, I had.
We had a Colombian shaman that lived in New York. His name was Manuel, and he conducted a lot of ceremonies in New York. That I went to a couple of them and had friends just involved in that sort of ayahuasca. You know, that sort of like. What is it called? Ceremonies here that they're conducted here. I never went to Colombia or Brazil or it always reminds me of the Yahe. That's when I first heard of what became known as ayahuasca to me. That was from reading William Burroughs when I was a kid. You know, I read that in high school. I think that was maybe Junkie. I can't remember. Which one I think it was actually, that's a Yahweh Letters to. Have you ever read those?
No.
Yeah, it's all about his experiences. In I guess it was. Is it Yahweh is in Brazil?
Yeah.
What they call it? So, or Argentina or
in Colombia. I was in Colombia.
You were
it was referred to as Yahe.
Yeah. Okay. Why do we call it ayahuasca here in the state? Do you know what that is?
No.
Okay, so those are letters that were written to. Allen Ginsberg.
Okay.
So it's all about his experiences, and reading those experiences actually kind of frightened me about the potential of taking this drug. Right, like that's the first I heard. Maybe I was, 7. I was in reading the beats when I was in high school. I was introduced on the road, and of course it exploded into reading all the other beatniks, and then that was my first and wasn't introduced to ayahuasca until years later from my friend Lance, who's now no longer with us, but he introduced me to going to those ceremonies and stuff like that, and they healed him. Potentially, he was always fought drug addiction and sort of. And I guess what they'd refer to it as medicine, obviously. And so, have you had a lot of ayahuasca experiences as well,
No.
This was the one that you did?
Yeah.
And I would say for me, it was probably my most profound psychedelic experience, right? Taking ayahuasca as comparative to, other sort of, or I should say maybe most immersive. And I did it, in ceremony, and I saw how also it wouldn't have been something that I would not have taken recreationally.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like in a sense that like I experimented with all the other things. And I wanted to ask, it's funny, it's very similarly in a safe setting, like, raves or clubs when I was a kid that we would get psychedelics at, like the Limelight or Tunnel, and these spaces that were like almost like safe spaces in a sense. Like everyone's sort of, it's kind of a, for lack of a better term, a freak show in a way, right? Like everyone's just letting their freak out, sort of, kind of, and it's a safe environment in that context. Here comes my partner now, and she would be very interested in talking to you about maps. So this is our guest here, Isolde.
Hi.
And this is Kenny Mack.
Yeah.
And he's Kenny Mack is his last name, but this is the Maps guy that and he works for one of my favorite farms, Garden of, over here. He works on the farm, and I was just talking to him. He just sat down.
A
little bit ago. So just to bring, and Gunner's kind of loosely joining us now. I'll give you this mic. Sorry, it's fast and loose here, Kenny.
I love it. That's how I like it.
I do have another headset if Isolde wanted one. I don't have a headset though for you. She doesn't need a headset. Okay, so I'm gonna.
It's been a couple weeks in the making.
Oh yeah, hi. How are you?
Here, you can have this.
Oh, you got another guest coming on? Are you the T-shirt person? Okay. Because he said there was one girl that makes T-shirts that he was going to have come by. Here you go. You can take that, Gunner. That's not the right one. And are you on there, Gunner? Can I hear you?
Hello.
Okay, there you go. Okay. So
I can't hear myself.
You can't?
Number
Oh,
3.
Here you go.
There we go.
You hear yourself now?
I do.
Okay.
No.
Oh, I told you that I took some MAPS acid. A guy gave it to me that I met on the trail. Did I not tell you that?
It's coming back to me now. Yeah.
I met a guy on the trail, and I'd never had any MAPS. Like I said, look, I had some really strong acid. Like there was
I'm gonna work the camera.
There was like the Trinity. Yeah, that worked the camera, Gunner. So there was a because I'd like some more camera work occasion. We need to get a cameraman. And like I said, we're running this. You got some nice lavender.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man.
And so when I did at the end of the John Muir Trail, I came across a guy that was doing and he lives here in L.A. and he used to live in Venice, and he was originally from Florida, and we had a Florida connection because my grandparents had a marina in Fort Myers, which is right near I think he has a place in Sanibel Island. We had made some connections, and that's what's great about hiking, because you'll always find a way to connect with somebody. There's a way, like the degrees of separation always seem to be smaller, just because you start to eliminate the riffraff when you get up into the higher altitudes. So it seems like the 6 degrees of separation become less and less, like 2 degrees of separation, more profoundly than you would in the general populace. And so he was just like my backpack or something. We started talking, and then soon, and this is towards the end of the trail, and he's going to continue going on, and he shouldn't even be on this trail. I don't think that you have, you're able to do Mount Whitney if you're on the PCT, because you need a,
You have to get
you need a permit.
Yeah.
And I happen to have an extra permit because Isolde couldn't finish the trail. Are those fresh mulberries?
Yeah, really
wow,
good.
that's incredible looking.
Have some.
Do you want a mulberry?
Like melonberry, thanks.
Oh, those are something else, and she told me 2 times.
Olala
She told me
berries?
2 times, and yeah.
This is Isolde.
What are they called?
He's joining us on the show.
Olala berry.
Olala berries?
These are lala berries?
No, those
That's
are
a
Oh,
mulberry.
that's what I thought.
These are
The other
Olala
one's an
berries.
olala berry.
Wow, those are incredible.
They're like a mix of 3 berries. That's
Yeah,
what they
like
said.
blackberry.
Marionberry and something else with a
something,
mystery.
Yeah.
Other one.
There's something so meaty about a mulberry. Do you know? There's like it's got a certain like je ne sais quoi that I can't really describe. You know how you can always sort of
They're dense.
there's something
Yeah.
about them that make them special.
Because they're like a thin-skinned berry that probably gets a lot of wind. And like a lot of the.
So I was given the maps, and I thought it was an incredible. But it's the stuff that was made. That was their pyramids with like a
like
gold
gel tabs.
fleck
Yeah.
in them.
Well, I will say there's no such thing as MAPS acid.
Oh, okay. So yeah,
Oh.
it was a guy that worked at the lab that produced his own, I guess, sort
They
of
would-
bootleg.
Nobody would ever do such a thing.
I love that. Yeah. So either way, it was a great experience to being able to. The guy was very kind, and at first I was tentative because I didn't trust it. I was like, I took just a half one the day before just to see what it was about, and then I was like, wow, this is really clean, incredible. And like I said, I had taken there was the Holy Trinity acid that was floating around that was very, when it's like maybe mid-90s or something, and it was called the Jesus Christ Superstar, the Madonnas, and and they had it was like it was like Jesus, it was an image
Blotter
of
paper.
they were blotters, and they were apparently like twice as strong, like they were like a double dose sort of, and it was an acid that maybe lasted too long. Have you had that experience ever?
No, it's always just right.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Then you're getting good stuff. Sometimes I feel like it could go on for a long time, like that one particular one that Madonna or whatever that I'd taken, and I was like, wow, this could just end now. You know, I've had that like next day.
Set and setting.
Yeah, set and setting. Where you have commitments. That's a.
I feel like it's always just set and setting.
We spoke about that. Yeah.
I mean, it does also, I think, kind of is influenced by many factors. You know, the substance, who it is, the intentions behind it, the practices.
Yeah.
There's lots of things.
And to catch you up, Kenny's particular, what he did at MAPS was he worked sort of the festival or festivals or these environments where they would create essentially set and setting for environment, like safe.
For about 10 years now, I've been working with the Zendo project, and we create safe spaces for people at festivals that are having challenging experiences, usually because they've had a psychedelic or some sort of substance.
Music festivals.
Yeah, Lightning in a Bottle, Burning Man,
Okay.
these big music and art festivals. And we have a team of volunteers that are trained to provide peer support. And that was most of what I did. And Zendo Project at one point was under the MAPS umbrella, but has since become its own nonprofit.
So you guys are kind of like a trail angels, but like bad trip angels.
Yeah, that's a good
And you just
comparison.
like float around from festival to festival
Yeah.
and scope out who's having
And is
rough
it like
time.
you set up
Wow.
a booth?
Yeah, so Burning Man specifically, we set up a couple yurts, like around on different sides of the clock.
Uh-huh.
And then usually at like Lightning in a Bottle or Desert Hearts, these other festivals, usually we have like a either like a yurt or like a Lotus Bell tent, like a big canvas tent, or maybe like a couple canopies or something set up, usually next to like the first aid medical.
Yeah.
We usually work side by side with them. And we will have like comfy pillows or chairs or tea, water, earplugs, condoms, just anything related to harm reduction.
Yeah.
Did you say condoms? Did
Yeah.
you just throw that in there?
Yeah.
Harm reduction. Harm reduction
is what it's called. It's called harm reduction. So if people could potentially do harm or make bad decisions while in these sort of escalated scenarios,
Okay.
And the earplugs and condoms and stuff are for people to take with
Yeah,
them.
that's what I
Like
was confused.
not necessarily like people in the space. It's more so people just passing by will have like.
You're like, don't mind them over there. This is an intimate zone here in the yurt.
Yeah, we draw very clear boundaries. Let me put that out there. Very clear boundaries. Yeah.
That reminded me of a "Don't Be a Menace While Drinking Juice in the Hood" skit where he's like, these guys are getting busy on the dance floor, and it literally pans down and there's people that are like
busy on the dance
getting
floor.
busy on the dance floor.
Yeah.
Which I love those visual puns. I mean, it's like, but that's the visual pun that you provided for
That's
me.
what I was thinking.
There, so no, not at the moment, but just to take with you, sort of,
Right.
and sort of. That's a great sort of thing, I would imagine, at a festival. Just where you could be like kind of have on a like it's like a bad trip.
Cared for.
Yeah. Have you come across many? What is? Give me worst case scenario that you've encountered at a festival. Can you?
I mean, I have definitely seen, experienced, worked, helped many people that are undergoing some pretty challenging times. But one of our principles is sort of respecting people's experiences. And personally, I don't like to really talk about the things that I've seen just because if somebody were to be listening, they might feel like, oh, like if I go into that space, like somebody might talk about my experience outside, So just sort of out of respect of like creating a container and protecting that container. I don't really talk about people's experiences.
I respect that. I do.
What do you feel like is there a consistency of like freak out If you could isolate
It's all
it.
over the board.
Huh.
Yeah, very positive things, very challenging things.
Yeah.
People might be like just in like complete euphoria, like complete ecstasy, whereas some people might be in fear or paralyzed by fear. Sometimes I would say the hardest experiences that I have come across are when people have decided to stop taking their medication because like SSRIs, for example, if you're on them, they will kind of negate the effects of MDMA. And so a lot of people will stop taking their meds.
And remind us what SRIs are.
SSRIs,
SSRIs,
selective
sorry.
serotonin reuptake
Okay,
inhibitors.
okay.
It's basically like antidepressant medication.
Yes.
And so a lot of people will stop taking their medication because they want to be able to go to these festivals and take substances, have a good time, trip, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then you are going into this overwhelming, very stimulating environment. You're off your meds, which you're not used to. You're
Yeah.
now taking these substances that are putting you under potentially more stress or more stimulation. And it's just sort of this disaster,
Yeah.
recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
And people might have like a psychotic break or might have
Yeah.
a psychotic episode. And those are often the most challenging to deal with as the sitter, as the person providing support, but more importantly, the most challenging for the person themselves because
Yeah.
they're not only going through this experience, which depending on who's interacting with them might be making it worse. Like if you're just like, security at these events, they don't know how to deal with people like this. They,
Yeah.
so they might be making it worse, or you might get taken to medical or something if the some festivals have medical that is like very much by the books and not like very aware of how to provide support for somebody going through these experiences, and so they might just like strap you down and sedate you to get you to relax. And
That's what I was going to ask. Okay, so in those scenarios, are you providing them any sort of like sugar or what is what I
water,
mean, in your,
tea, snacks.
Okay,
I mean,
you
there's
guys have
yeah, we have all those sorts of things.
It's kind of like
There's-
an aid station at a festival.
Yeah.
But and so like electrolytes, stuff like that, like
Yeah.
these sort of things that
Well,
we can
like
maybe
ramen,
Huh.
if somebody hasn't eaten.
Yeah.
But we don't do any we don't give any medication.
Sure.
We also don't do like essential oils or massage or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, like a
very
Hands
like,
off.
very
Yeah.
hands off. Very if somebody wants their handheld,
Yes.
then we'll like get consent.
Yes.
If somebody wants a hug, we'll make consent clear.
Yeah.
But we have very sort of strict guidelines to preserve
Probably
consent,
for maybe
respect,
even
and
potential litigious reasons as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Gunner's taking his shirt off now. I don't.
And eating a carrot.
Gunner loves his body.
Hey, good for you, Gunner. Hell yeah, we should all love our bodies.
He's not. Gunner is not. He doesn't need body affirmation. Is that what you're? But he does have a. He is biohacking. He's going to show off his yoga skills now and
Nice.
stuff. It's great to have a co-host
Yeah,
that's just
absolutely.
so present. Anyway, what I was going to also ask. So, he also did a very similar. I wouldn't say similar thing, but like you worked at a facility where they did PTSD patients.
Yeah.
At MAPS, where. What would you call it? An intake or what was the? So like they'd stay there for a night.
Yeah, the
And he was a
participants would come in. It was a clinical trial using
Okay.
MDMA to treat PTSD, MDMA-assisted therapy to treat PTSD. The participant would come in the morning, have all-day therapy with a co-therapist team, and then they would have to stay overnight at the facility. Therapists would leave, and I would come in, or whoever the night attendant was that was assigned. And we basically would provide whatever support was needed, whether that was talking, not talking, just, sometimes the person might just go to their room for the rest of the night.
Yeah.
Sometimes somebody might want to sit and talk and process, talk about their favorite TV show, whatever it was. We would have dinner together, breakfast. I would prepare breakfast for them. And then the therapist would show up the next day and do sort of like a follow-up kind of debrief sort of situation. Everybody would go their separate ways.
And where is this? This is at MAPS.
This was in Los Angeles. So this was a MAPS-funded clinical 3 trial, or phase 3 clinical trial.
And what were phase 1 and 2?
So phase 1 and 2 are basically smaller scale. Phase 2 is going to be similar to phase 3, but just a much smaller subject size or sample size. And then phase 3 gets sort of extrapolated to a larger sample size, and there's like more criteria that you have to sort of show your effectiveness and many other things that are set by like the FDA and all drugs that are trying to be brought to public have to go through the different clinical trial, clinical phase 1, 2, 3 before it can be brought to market.
But is that the aim of MAPS? In a way?
MAPS. So MAPS has kind of transformed over the last decade. At the time, they were so MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies. So they were a big like fundraiser and organizer for psychedelic studies.
Started in the 70s. Did he it was one? What's the guy's
Rick Doblin.
Rick Doblin.
Yeah, he founded it 70s or 80s. I don't recall.
Yeah. I mean, it became more prolific more recently, I would say, or the resurgence of an interest in microdosing
in the 2000s,
and it being
especially
integrated into like modern medicine even currently.
Yeah.
I feel like, or it's made far more strides than it did in its sort of humble budding beginnings.
Yeah.
And so, did you meet him?
I've met him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, where you were working at this time was at a Los Angeles facility, like an outpost that was funded by MAPS.
Yeah.
But not called. It wasn't. What was the title of this?
Something very like phase 3.
Okay.
Blah blah blah. Very scientific or whatever.
And Kenny is trained in psychology. We covered all this sort of stuff. So this is how this is. You jumped in, and just to bring you up to speed, he's trained in psychology. Had a psilocybin experience in college that sort of shifted his trajectory both professionally and in his career personally, to the MDMA results was, what is it, 83% success rate?
Yeah, that was the phase 2 trial, which
trial.
was a very small sample size. And so now that the sample size is larger with the more recent trials, the results weren't as like astonishing.
Yeah.
But at the time when I had came across this study back in 2012, 13 or whatever, which led me kind of diving down the rabbit hole of psychedelia and psychedelic assisted therapy. The phase 2 trial was showing that 83% of participants could no longer be diagnosed as having PTSD after one MDMA-assisted therapy. And these were participants or people that had chronic resistant PTSD. So this was like very difficult, very sort of stubborn or just PTSD that just was not having any sort of relief by all the other typical sort of modes of therapy and relief and everything.
And this was just after one
session.
Trip?
One MDMA-assisted psychotherapy session.
Huh. Okay.
So that's pretty profound. And so, you no longer are working with MAPS, is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
But you're still doing the
Zendo project.
Yeah, Zendo project.
Yep.
Okay.
Shout out Zendo project.
Yeah,
Shout out Zendo project. And how are you? What is the capacity? Because Kenny, who is originally from Inland Empire, which very close to where you were riding the Tevis Cup horses, which Riverside.
Yeah.
He grew up there, and so Kenny now he lives on the farm up in Santa Ynez, which
beautiful.
is, and he was just describing how beautiful it was up there. And this is the farm garden of the last stand. Exiting towards
the most beautiful
east.
stand in the market
is.
with the most beautiful
I would say
produce.
that you definitely have the most beautiful produce, and it's most when I go there, And is it Japanese farming? Is it like
The farmer is Japanese.
Yeah, because we were privileged enough, and I think I mentioned that to you. We stayed on the first, or adjacent to the first, organic farm in Maryland when we went out
Yeah, I
there
remember you
recently,
told me
which is
that.
called One Straw Farm, named after One Straw Revolution. And I'm wondering if that's a profound piece of literature for the farmer and it's a Japanese writer or farmer that
Cool.
brings this organic process, I guess, to the.
I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah, I'm forgetting his name too, but to the when he, as it was told to us in the 80s in Maryland when he first opened One Straw Farm, having read One Straw Revolution, I think published in the late 70s, he said that people just were like, what does that even mean? The term organic.
They can sell anything.
Or they didn't see what was the potential,
Yeah.
what was the differentiation,
Why?
what was the important, why, what does this mean, what's the significance? And so I would just wonder, it's a similar farming practice. And we worked for an organic farm in New York. I don't know if I told you that.
I think so. I think I remember that.
And this stand most reminds me of Richard's
Oh, okay.
stand,
Okay.
for sure. Like it's the same lettuces,
Huh.
great variety of lettuces. They're triple wash, like
Yeah.
Richard took care of his. Like the vegetables, just you were like, yeah, I want to work at this farm.
Yeah.
And it would make sense. He lives on the farm.
You lived on the farm.
do.
Oh, dreamy.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a question. So you
Yes.
said that maps started out as more of a research base, and now you're like, oh, its trajectory is changing into.
Oh, yeah, it still is. It still does a lot of like fundraising and
Yeah.
organizing for research studies.
Yeah.
But they've also done a lot of like activism, legal sort of stuff, like trying to help with like legislature. They have. It's sort of transformed a little bit because it's also kind of been kind of criticized for kind of going like a privatized route.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that is kind of one of the goals is to bring to market?
Yeah, that was a big goal of MAPS, specifically Lycos. That was sort of like a privatized sector. All the wording is kind of like funky because of how they were how that whole world works. But
Like having a branch of
Like a
because MAPS is a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of their goals was to bring MDMA to market for therapy. And so being a nonprofit, they wouldn't be able to do that because they were also trying to sort of like get a like patent on the MDMA therapy. And as a nonprofit, they wouldn't be able to do that, but they also needed to sort of like have a means of like supporting the nonprofit. And so they created like a public benefit corps, and there's all of this like murkiness that is over my head.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the proposal to bring MDMA to market, after doing all of this research, phase 1, 2, 3, all numerous studies, it sadly was rejected by the FDA approval for a number of reasons, based on like the maybe like rigors of the testing or just different things that the FDA didn't. It wasn't up to standard based on whatever their standards are. And so that was definitely a big blow. That was a big blow in general for psychedelics.
Yeah.
Psychedelic assisted therapy. But it's not over. The fight's not over.
Do you feel like with psychedelic assisted therapy, is there a certain arena of therapy that always seemed or is in vogue almost right now that coincides with this? Like, is there Freudian psycho-assisted therapy, or what is the mode right now?
CBT. What is the cognitive behavioral therapy? What is the mode of therapy that is sort of go hand in hand with?
Yeah,
And where's it going?
It's kind of hard to say because it's almost sort of this like, at least from when I was more closely related to the clinical trials, my understanding was that it was sort of this like new technique of recognizing that there's this inner healer And so the therapists aren't doing a lot of, they're not really guiding the session necessarily. They're not doing a lot of talking. They're more so acting as like bumpers for the participant to kind of like stay in the lane, but aren't like leading them along.
Yeah.
Because they kind of want to encourage the participant to sort of have these realizations or do this work, personal work, within or on their own, as opposed to the therapist like leading them by the hand.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like hosting in a way.
Yeah.
Or
Hosting
even
as a
almost
base.
like shaman, more
Yeah,
akin
that-
to being shaman than
I don't know. I wouldn't use that word because I feel like
Doctor.
that word is
Yeah.
like very loaded. It could mean
for
a
sure.
lot of things.
I agree. I think that
Yeah.
and often misappropriated, obviously. Yeah. And I don't want to do that. I'm just thinking like maybe like a little bit more less, just sort of a conductor or like a master of ceremony rather than somebody who is like, sort of doctor, which I would imagine a doctor being more hands-on, sort of.
Yeah. But also, I would say depending on who your shaman is, quote
Yeah,
unquote shaman,
yeah, yeah.
they might also be very hands-on,
Sure.
which is
Yeah.
not a good thing, and that's definitely an
Yeah.
issue within the world of
Sure.
psychedelics.
Yeah, I would
is
imagine.
These neo-shamans who have this
Yes.
like savior complex after doing one psychedelic trip, and they
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
they can heal the world now, and they
Yeah.
unfortunately a lot of times abuse their
Their-
power or
Yeah.
authority or whatever it is, and so unfortunately there is a lot of pitfalls, which is a benefit of the medicalization of psychedelics. But with the medicalization of psychedelics, it also makes it very inaccessible, and so it's a really
But
challenging.
validated, because
Yeah.
it has a scientific basis.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
also sort of there's like this mysticism to psychedelics that's so powerful that like how can science like measure that?
Yeah.
How can science like validate that mysticism or not sort of like deny that mysticism that is so powerful?
Yeah, and MAP seems to be, and I think that maybe a good shaman or those that are working with the alchemy of like in the case of ayahuasca, it's like mixing a tree bark and like
Vine in the root.
vine and
Yeah.
root. So there's a certain sort of it's like it's like mixing a drink or whatever, like you're getting that, and I would imagine that through the chemistry, the chemists working on, like there's probably a certain sort. It's more analogous than it is. We're standing on the shoulders of medicine men that were
Yeah.
once experimenting, with what even safe berries there are to
Right.
eat. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there are some fallen soldiers back there for having eaten the wrong thing.
Eat the wrong
right?
berry? Yeah, absolutely.
Or mushroom,
Yeah.
or what have So I kind of feel like they're far more analogous than they are different.
Yeah.
But I was just wondering. So now the is it Zendo project that and how is that adjacent or connected to MAPS, and what are you doing for them currently?
So Zendo Project had been sort of like a subsidiary of MAPS, or was like under
Similar
the MAPS
to the
umbrella.
Leica or the Leicas, whatever.
I guess similar in the sense that they were associated with MAPS.
Mm-hmm.
MAPS in the early years of Zendo Project was sort of a fundraiser or like a supporter for Zendo Project.
Mm-hmm.
In the last couple of years, Zendo Project became its own nonprofit.
Okay.
And so still closely aligned because of sort of all the years of history of being together. Nowadays, Zendo Project, since the pandemic, they sort of like scaled down a little bit or kind of like moved away from the festival scene a little bit and kind of restructured to do a lot more focus on like training and educating, and like for a while they were really focusing on like providing trainings to like police departments or fire departments and social workers, different organizations to train them on how to provide support for people in non-ordinary states of consciousness. They have since in the last year now shifted their focus back to festivals and getting back into the community and creating those safe spaces for community. And so right now, Burning Man every year, This year at Burning Man, it's going to look a little bit different, but lately they've been setting up safe spaces at like fish shows, maybe like Grateful Dead or Lightning in a Bottle. There was just the large psychedelic science conference in Denver a few weeks ago. They went and they had a presence there. They had like a
booth.
Yeah, a booth
Yeah.
with like safe space and everything for if people needed support during the conference, they were welcome to.
Did you go to that?
I didn't. No, I was
Okay.
backpacking. So
Oh,
I was in the
nice.
Sierras.
Cool. You were in the
Nice.
Sierras.
Yeah.
Awesome.
How were the
Yeah.
mosquitoes?
Actually, there was only one night where the mosquitoes got us.
This was
Okay.
recently? How long
yeah.
ago?
2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, so maybe
we were-
you got there before the bloom because we
What-
want to go now and we're afraid of the bloom.
Yeah. So when we're not to
Sorry, not to digress.
yeah, but we're
Oh, we've been digressing this whole time.
yeah, this
That's
is
all right.
this is a one large massive digression. I'm just because I'm curious. Where did you guys hike in the Sierras? What did you guys do?
Our permit was for the Ray Lakes Loop.
Yeah,
Nice.
which we were gonna.
Famous.
That's
yeah.
hard to get.
Hard to get.
So that's
Yeah.
very close to where I met during
Oh,
this.
cool.
So right at Ray Lakes,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
We had the permit for that. We'd been looking at the trail conditions for a while. Glen Pass obviously was covered in snow and ice.
Yeah.
We're like, shit, are we gonna need an
All
ice
those
pit?
passes get higher as you get
Yeah,
higher
as you
there.
get-
That snow melt is prolonged for sure.
Once we got there, though, the ranger was strongly recommending us not doing the trail because crossing the South Fork Kings River
Yeah.
was chest deep and raging, as she put
Wow.
Wow.
it. So we a
That
couple
is being right at the snow. So
Yeah.
this was only 2 weeks ago.
yeah
Crazy. And the Ray Lakes, does that include Forester Pass?
no.
Okay.
No. And so we ultimately decided to not risk our lives
Yeah.
in freezing cold chest deep water.
Sure.
And we ended up doing, I believe it was called Copper Creek Trail,
Uh-huh.
which was just nearby. It was like right at the other side of the ranger station. Went up to Granite Lake, Grouse Lake. Beautiful.
Wow.
Highly recommend.
And you were there for how many days were you guys out?
We ended up doing it in 4 days. 3
Okay.
nights, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we were thinking of doing the section from right when we go back up there, a little section that we missed from Mono Lake down to Kearsarge Pass. Our Mono Creek
Yeah.
entrance there, which is
Would you exit at Kearsarge?
we'd
Out at
exit
Valley?
at Kearsarge. Yeah,
I did that last year. I went in at Kearsarge and then went south to Whitney and out
Yeah.
Whitney Portal.
So that's
That's
when
what
I
he
went
did.
back,
Yeah.
and that's when I met because we had done from Yosemite down to VVR, and then the weather turned, and then she had to return to, and so then
It
I
was
returned.
like it was.
Yeah.
We were like, oh, it's just one weather storm coming in, and then it was two, and then it was like extending, and
When was this?
it was just last summer.
This
Oh,
was
okay.
last September.
Okay.
And I love hiking in September because
Yeah.
there's no mosquitoes. And
Yeah,
it's
it was
also,
beautiful.
there's less people on the trail as well. I always find that that's like the best hiking in a way, or it's like the most saturated, like everything's just like.
But people did it. I mean, people still went
Yeah.
out and did it.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah, they kind of waited it out a little bit, and then I caught back up with one guy that we had met at VVR, and that was, but it was, so we want to go back and do that little section there, and I feel like that's kind of like maybe like that Ray Lakes, that whole evolution,
Yeah,
like
Evolution
that
Valley.
Yeah,
that
that's
whole
where we wanna
area
go.
is like the high point. I feel like
Yeah.
of the area that we kind of like got.
That's the Evolution Valley is the one area on the JMT that I haven't done yet.
Oh, okay.
A couple years ago, my buddies and I started from Tuamli Meadows,
Mm-hmm.
and on day like 5, one of our buddies had to bail because he got hurt.
Yeah.
And then we made it to MTR, and one of our
Yeah.
other buddies couldn't bend his knee.
Wow.
And we were like, all right. So
Yeah.
we started with 4s, down to 3, and then halfway when we were
So
at
we
MTR,
had a
we were like,
similar
all right, We got
situation.
to make sure our friend gets out.
And we went from Yosemite, and then it was just not a combination of weather. So blisters your blisters were like
They
feel
were
that.
bad.
they
Yeah.
were
I did
biblical
like
blisters.
the number one don't do thing, which is
New
like
boots?
buy a new pair of shoes and then wear them.
Yeah.
And it was a pair of these shoes, and I was like, oh, I'll just get the exact same size, the exact same shoes, but they weren't
Yeah.
the same.
Weren't the same.
They were
They
like-
just slightly different.
Toe socks didn't do
toe-
it.
no?
I brought the toe socks. It was
She
just
got them on
like-
the heels.
Oh, okay.
The toe socks. So for me, it creates too much. There's too much material in the toe box.
I love me some toe socks now. I'm
I
all
know
about
people
Yeah.
it.
are into it. For me, I have too wide of a forefoot where it kind of like I feel like the material in between is too.
Yeah.
It's squeezing my toes in the front. I'm getting less
You gotta give your
foot
toes some room to breathe. Yeah.
I
feel that.
have a question of these modalities of taking people on these trips basically. Are there any involving animals right now? No.
Not that I'm aware of.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
At least not on like a legal level.
And
I'm
I told-
sure,
and I
I'm
told you
sure
she
that
would-
there's somebody out there that is giving somebody psychedelics and having them, play with
Goats or
kittens or
whatever.
goats or,
Yeah.
equine therapy or
Yeah,
something.
that's what I was driving
So
at.
I was told you she was an equestrian, and that's.
I am an equestrian.
No, I mean, I was before you came on the show,
Okay.
so I was telling him that you were an equestrian, not past
Okay.
tense, that you were an equestrian.
Okay. All right.
That you are an equestrian.
Sensitive because I'm not riding
Because
right
you
now.
weren't
Fair.
here. Yeah, you weren't here. You're currently and always will be an equestrian.
Well, I think it's interesting how, what people can. The fastest way to get to accepting these things legally is to just have everything backed up by science and
Yeah.
paperwork and in ways that we can accept and understand. Meanwhile, everyone's been taking trips in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah.
And
I will also say that a really powerful means of making these things legal, or at least more accepted, is by talking about it. If you think about
Which we're doing now.
what we're doing now, yeah. If you think about gay marriage, for the longest
Yeah.
time illegal.
yeah.
Once people started talking about it, more and more it became more accepted. Once you know somebody that's queer or gay and once you know somebody that has this experience or lives this experience, you're more accepting of it or you open up more to it. And sort of the same idea with psychedelics is that
Yeah.
once you meet somebody or know somebody or love somebody that has had these positive experiences and talks about it, it kind of humanizes
Familiarity,
it.
yeah.
Familiarity humanizes
Absolutely.
it, makes it more acceptable, which then kind of snowballs into more support in the public, and then you start getting legislature passed, and
Yeah.
things just become more accepted, and then it can finally be accessible for the people that need it.
And so I don't want to interrupt you, so go ahead and ask.
Do you feel what do you think are the most exciting new cultures surrounding it? Not in my mind, my fantasy trip would just be involving horses and the natural world as real providers of knowledge. A direct link experience, animism, modern animism. And I feel today everything is intake. It's almost like an intake culture or something because it's all literally synthetic. So I was just wondering if there are actually new strange cultures surrounding this, or what do you feel like is the cutting edge of providing these experiences, or people who are really it's just new exciting things.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that. Just because I feel it's all very exciting, just given the nature of the substances. Psychedelics in
Yeah.
general are exciting.
Yeah, they don't need.
I mean, I will say that right now, what is pretty exciting, just because it is legal, is ketamine-assisted therapy. And that's the most accessible for people. Unfortunately, it's also kind of commercialized.
Yeah, there's a ketamine clinic on Montana.
Yeah, you can
over
just.
there. You can get it looks like you can get Botox and ketamine
I would
and a
not be
cold
surprised.
plunge and
Yeah.
red therapy all in one place.
And
on a
how
subscription
and I would
base.
say, how do you feel about it being co-opted by these sort of where Botox? You get into
Yeah.
a sphere, which tends to happen in California in a way.
med
that
spas and.
yeah, or it just gets to be a little bit less.
Well, it's like having a menu for pot, and on it is hard street drugs
Yeah,
or something.
you're
It's
getting-
like
yeah,
you're
you're-
just
you're-
grouped
you're-
into the illegal. You're just grouped into the
Yeah, there's something that I have an apprehension about purchasing psilocybin tincture off the same menu as Coke. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So it's just kind of
Yeah.
you're muddying the waters.
Yeah.
In a way that
Yeah.
and
I definitely
that's-
have my concerns and reservations because we've already seen one backlash with the war on drugs. And, you know, as things were really popular in like the 60s, you saw this big backlash, this like negative response. And so I'm definitely concerned about that in today's age with how accessible ketamine can be. Or
Sure.
there's these dispensaries popping up that are on Venice or something that's selling mushrooms just out in the open. And it concerns me that there could be this like big crackdown, especially with the administration that's
Yeah.
currently in office,
Sure.
and that this crackdown will put us even further back.
Yeah.
Also, my big concern is being that I come from a harm reduction background.
Yeah.
With, you know, for example, like mushroom chocolates have become like such a huge, like easily accessible thing these days.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like I mean, chances are you don't know who it is that's making this.
Sure.
How the hell do you know what is even in this? Like,
I-
there's research chemicals that
I
could
was-
be getting put into these things.
I was going to say that I took some from that Gunnar had some chocolate, and he brought it over the one day that we were just kind of like we weren't doing a show, and I was kind of in front of the computer, and it was so racy that I was like, there's something in this that's not.
Yeah.
I didn't read it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just took it. I'm
Down
just
the
like,
hash.
sure, yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this isn't good.
Yeah.
And that was my suspicion. Like,
Yeah.
what else are they putting in there?
But that'll probably develop. You know, you're not going to be the first person that would probably think that, and eventually,
No.
like the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
phase would be, okay, you have to list and you have to explain, and they want photos of the nice environment that it's made in, and it's all like in the new marketing of that mushroom or something.
It's the Wild West right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gunner's going.
I gotta go too. I gotta go to the little boys' room,
Okay.
and I gotta get back to the stand.
And well, that was great talking to you, Kenny. And maybe we'll have you back again, even. And
Here every Wednesday.
Be a regular.
Yeah.
And so as a sign off, what is so the Zendo you're doing now is you're just kind of like loosely connected.
Yeah.
And working when you can.
Yeah.
And sort of on call freelance in a sense.
Yeah, I spend most of my time at the farm now.
Yeah.
So.
And the stuff that you're doing at the farm is mainly you're not doing a lot of the farm, and you're doing a lot of the.
Yeah.
But this is people relation stuff. It's an extension of your work.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Totally. Yeah. Instead of talking to people about psychedelics, I talk to them about lettuce.
Yeah. Well, it was a privilege having you on, Kenny.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
And thank you so much.
Yeah.
I guess I'll let you use the facilities, and
thanks.
you guys and your colleagues are probably wondering where you are.
Yeah, probably.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you, Ken.
I want to visit. I want to visit.
You should visit.
Yeah, like I definitely want to visit.
The farm.
I just co-opted all of this. I'm sorry.
Perfect. I really have to go right now. All right,
Okay.
I'll catch y'all later.
Yeah,
I have
bye,
some-
guys.
I need
Thanks,
to be
Kenny.
here At 12:30, and it's 12:18. So I'm
Okay.
already late.
I can help.
Break it down.
I
Yeah.
can help break this down.
Yeah. Just,
Gunner, I'll help break down. Don't worry about it.
I guess I'll just come back to get my backpack.
Oh, at the house.
Yeah, it's at the house.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just come back later.
Would I bomb your podcast?